Romans 1:17. I'll just go in order in the New Testament. What did you guys see Paul doing in Romans 1 and how he's using Habakkuk chapter 2?
Yeah, in Romans 1, Paul connects righteousness to a matter of faith.
Yep.
So he picks up on the wording of Habakkuk 2:4 of righteous shall live by faith. Two words that are important for Paul in his argument in Romans.
Yep.
And so he says righteousness has always been a matter of faith, trusting God,
Yep.
just like it was in Habakkuk. So he's using the Old Testament to make his...
Yeah. So would you say that's a command, a hope promise, recurring theme, story, or type?
Well, in this sense, it's a command in the sense that God's people are commanded to have faith.
Right, so it's a command. Yep. So you could put it that way?
You could say, as God's solution to his people's wickedness was carried out by evil foreigners, Jesus continued entrusting himself to God who judges justly.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Yep. And it's interesting, right? Because in Romans goes on to talk about the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against both the Jew and the Gentile, and every mouth is stopped. It's really interesting. I think Romans chapter 1 through 3 is basically Paul reflecting on Habakkuk. Because he's like, God's going to judge all the Jews. He's going to judge all the Gentiles. Everyone will be judged. Which is how Habakkuk 2 ends, right? With like every mouth will be silent before him. And then he gives the answer, right? Jesus, which is this answer, right? That just like Habakkuk would only be delivered by trusting, so we too are only delivered by trusting. So command, maybe you could say a recurring theme too, right? But speaking of this command, like we're still called to trust, right? But now, the difference between Habakkuk and us is we've seen Jesus come and die for us. We've seen him bring the deliverance. And so we have even more encouragement to lean in, right? All right, what about back here, the group, Galatians 3:11.
Part of the broader argument of like Galatians, if you're trying to just do the right things and be justified by following the law, the second you mess up, you're cursed.
Right.
So how are we going to solve that problem of being cursed? Kind of in a way that no one would have imagined, Jesus is going to come to earth and be cursed on our behalf.
Yeah.
But we aren't,
Yep.
So the recurring theme of just God doing something that you wouldn't have ever have imagined to solve a problem of people.
Yeah, that's right. And we can tap into that solution by faith, right? So exactly, you're picking up on that kind of recurring theme, right? So Paul's picking up on this and saying this is still true for us today, right? We're not in the same shoes as Habakkuk, right? We don't have Babylonians about to invade us. But we do have the real threat of God's judgment for our sin. And one day, there will be a day of judgment, but the righteous can live through that day of judgment by trusting in the one who took the judgment for us, right? And that is a beautiful hope, right? All right, what about Hebrews 10:38? I had two groups work on this one. This one's maybe a little bit tougher, so that's why I gave two groups to this one. So how did you guys try to make sense of Hebrews 10:38?
Kind of went back and also joined in 37.
Yeah, absolutely, because, Yep. So, yep.
Found the theme of endurance with patience and joy
Yes.
to be the theme of Habakkuk.
Yeah, and so here in Hebrews, he's focusing more on the endurance, right? So while in Romans and Galatians, Paul's picking up on this theme of like you're saved from God's judgment, in Hebrews, he's picking more on that theme of like enduring and waiting in faith, right?
Right.
Yeah. Did you guys get something similar? Do you see maybe another like wrinkle to it?
We discussed both promise and recurring theme.
Yeah.
Like the reoccurring theme of faith, which you continue on into 11.
Yep.
Then we get into like the
Yeah.
whole faith. And then before that, we went up to 35. So we read from 35 to 37 before we got to 38.
Yeah.
And discussed the hope that we have in the promise.
Yeah, so there's this promise, right? And what is the promise that the author of Hebrews is thinking about?
The preservation of our souls.
Yep. Until that day when the coming one comes and does not delay, right? Now here's what's interesting. In Habakkuk, is it a person that he's supposed to be waiting for, or like what is he waiting for? back in Habakkuk. Yeah, for God's ultimate plan, judgment of the Babylonians, right? And so the author of Hebrews is seeing this pattern, this promise of like, oh, but the real judgment to come is going to come when Jesus returns. So he paraphrases, instead of saying, wait for the message, wait for the word, he says, yet a little while and the coming one will come. Because he's seeing that that word, that final act of God to make everything right, is in Jesus. So he paraphrases and sticks Jesus in there because he sees that that's really what it points to. That the promise of Habakkuk, of that pattern of God judging to make things right, is ultimately fulfilled when Jesus comes back to make all things right. And so that promise, that pattern in that promise says, hold on. It's worth it to keep trusting, right? Yep.
I'm just trying to think of your question, like, what was, or who was Habakkuk asking for? So like, okay, if the nation's oppressing them,
Yep.
God deliver us. What does that deliverance look like?
Yeah.
Person, a vague idea.
Yep.
And I think that's kind of what God's response was. Hey, yeah, their fruits will be their own downfall.
Yep.
But like, I kind of think of that now. It's like, okay, what am I asking God for?
Yeah.
Like, what do I expect? You know?
Right. Yep.
What does Habakkuk expect?
Yep.
I don't know.
Right, because I'm sure Habakkuk would have loved, probably like the first century people, like, hey, if you could just wipe out all those other nations and make us like a powerful nation that loves you and keeps your law, and that would be great.
Yeah.
And God's like, I got something even better in mind. I'm going to redeem all the nations. I'm going to do it through King Jesus, who's going to die on a cross and rise again victorious over all spiritual evil, over sin, over death, right? And so you might be thinking, oh man, if we could just have like a perfect nation that loves God. That'd be a great thing, wouldn't it? But you know what's even better? When God's kingdom comes to earth and when every nation's gathered around his throne. That's even better, right? And so, yeah, we need to look ahead to where the real promise is coming, right? So, yeah. So hopefully you can see like using this tool helps you kind of stay anchored in the text. But then again, like if I just read Habakkuk and go, okay, I'm supposed to trust him as I wait, that's a hard word. But when I remember, oh, but Jesus has already come and dealt with it, and oh, he's coming back again, that there's something that God does, I think, as we connect to Christ that just like supercharges the message of the text in our hearts. And that's why we're only going to find life and transformation if we find it in him.